I never thought I'd be the kind of man to notice the small things, the ones that slip through the cracks of a busy life. But when you've been married for 12 years, you start to see the edges of things fraying, like a favorite sweater you've worn too long. My name is Daniel Carver, and I'm 42, a structural engineer with a penchant for order and symmetry. My wife, Elise, is 38, a high school art teacher with a laugh that used to make my chest ache in the best way. We live in a modest two-story house in a quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon, with a backyard that's more dandelions than grass. We've got no kids, just a tabby cat named Juniper who's more Elise's than mine. Life was good, predictable, until the threads started pulling loose. It began with the coffee cups. Elise always left her mugs half full on the counter, a habit that used to annoy me but became endearing over time. She'd sip her chamomile tea or black coffee, get distracted by a sketch or a phone call, and wander off, leaving the cup to cool. I'd clean them up, rinse them out, and stack them in the dishwasher with a smile, thinking of her absent-minded artist's soul. But about 6 months ago, I noticed the cups weren't hers. They were mine, plain white ceramic ones I used for my morning espresso. And they weren't just left on the counter. They were in odd places. One in the guest bathroom sink, another on the windowsill in the laundry room, places Elise never went. At first, I chalked it up to her being scattered. She'd been busier than usual, staying late at school for art club meetings or grading projects. She'd come home with paint smudged on her wrists, her auburn hair tied up in a messy bun, and she'd kiss me distractedly before heading to the shower. I didn't mind. Her passion for teaching was one of the things I loved most about her. But the cups kept showing up, and they weren't alone. There were other signs, small, nagging inconsistencies. A receipt for a coffee shop I'd never heard of, tucked in her coat pocket. A new scarf, deep emerald green, that I hadn't bought her and that she never wore when I was around. A faint whiff of cologne on her jacket, something sharp and musky, not my cedarwood scent. I'm not a suspicious man by nature. I build bridges, calculate load-bearing capacities, make sure things hold up under pressure. I trust in the math of things, the reliability of numbers. But numbers don't lie, and neither do patterns. I started paying attention. Elise's phone, which used to lie face up on the kitchen table, was now always face down or in her purse. She'd take calls in the other room, her voice low and clipped, and when I'd ask who it was, she'd say, just a parent about a student, or the principal's scheduling stuff. Her answers were too quick, too rehearsed. One evening in late September, I came home early from a site inspection. The house was quiet, Juniper curled up on the couch, but Elise's car was in the driveway. I called out, expecting to hear her voice from the studio upstairs where she painted. Nothing. I climbed the stairs, my boots heavy on the hardwood, and found her in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. Her face was flushed, her eyes wide, like she'd been caught stealing. "You're home early," she said, her voice a pitch higher than usual. "Inspection wrapped up fast," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "Everything okay?" She nodded, too quickly, and slipped her phone into her pocket. "Just texting a colleague about the fall art show." She stood, smoothing her skirt, and crossed the room to kiss me. Her lips were warm, but the kiss felt perfunctory, like a signature on a form. I watched her walk downstairs, her hips swaying in that familiar way, and something in my gut twisted. That night I couldn't sleep. Elise was curled on her side, her breathing soft and even, but I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The cologne, the cups, the phone, it was all adding up, but I didn't want to believe it. I told myself I was being paranoid, that 12 years of marriage meant something, that Elise wouldn't do that to me, to us. But doubt is a slow poison, and it was already seeping in. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I checked her phone. She was in the shower, the bathroom door locked, steam curling out from under it. Her phone was on the nightstand, charging. I hesitated, my hand hovering over it. This wasn't me. I wasn't the guy who snooped, but the weight in my chest was heavier than my principles. I typed in her passcode, our anniversary, 0912, and opened her messages. There it was, A thread with a contact labeled M. No name, just an initial. The messages were vague but damning. "Missed you today," one said. Time-stamped from 2 days ago. "Can't wait for Thursday," another read, with a winking emoji. My heart thudded in my ears. Thursday was tomorrow, and Elise had told me she'd be at school late for a parent-teacher conference. I scrolled further, my fingers trembling. A message from last week. "Your place? 7 p.m.? Her reply, "Perfect." I put the phone down, my mouth dry. The shower shut off, and I heard Elise humming softly, some tune I didn't recognize. I sat on the bed, my hands clenched, trying to make sense of it. M could be anyone. A colleague, a friend, a misunderstanding. But the cologne, the scarf, the cups, they weren't misunderstandings. They were evidence. I didn't confront her that day. I went to work, my mind a fog, blueprints blurring in front of me. I kept replaying the messages, the winking emoji, the casual intimacy of "your place." By the time I got home, Elise was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, her hair damp from another shower. She smiled at me, bright and warm, and for a moment, I doubted everything. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. But the next day, Thursday, I couldn't shake it. I left work early, told my boss I wasn't feeling well, and drove home. Elisa's car was gone as expected. She texted me that morning, "Late night at school. Don't wait up." I sat in my truck, parked a block from our house, and waited. At 6:45 p.m., her car pulled into the driveway of a house I didn't recognize. A modern 2-story with sleek windows and a manicured lawn, about 10 minutes from ours. I watched her get out, her emerald scarf loose around her neck, and walk to the front door. A man opened it, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a smile that made my stomach lurch. He pulled her inside, and the door closed. I don't know how long I sat there, my hands gripping the steering wheel. Could have been minutes or hours. The world felt like it was tilting, like one of my bridges had buckled under too much weight. I wanted to storm the house, kick the door down, demand answers. But I didn't. I drove home. The image of that man's hand on her waist burned into my mind. His name was Marcus. I found out later that night, after Elise came home, smelling faintly of that musky cologne. She was cheerful, chatting about her long day at school, but I barely heard her. I'd gone through her phone again while she slept, found more messages, and pieced it together. Marcus Reed, a history teacher at her school. Divorced, mid-40s, charming in that effortless way that made people like him instantly. I'd met him once at a faculty Christmas party 2 years ago. He'd shaken my hand, clapped my shoulder, and said, "You're a lucky man, Dan." I'd laughed, agreed. Now, the memory made me want to break something. The next few weeks were a blur. I didn't confront her, not yet. I needed proof, something undeniable. I started tracking her movements, not proud of it but unable to stop. I checked her phone when I could, noted the time she left and came home, followed her twice more to Marcus's house. Each time, I felt a piece of myself erode, like sandstone under a relentless tide. I loved Elise, or at least the version of her I'd known for 12 years. But this Elise, the one who lied, who slipped away to another man's house, was a stranger. I hired a private investigator, a quiet man named Greg who smelled like cigarettes and regret. He didn't ask questions, just took my money and promised results. A week later, he handed me a folder with photos. Elise and Marcus at a cafe, laughing over coffee. Elise leaving his house at 9 p.m., her hair mussed. Marcus kissing her in a parking lot, her hands on his chest. The images were sharp, clinical, each one a knife to the gut. Greg also gave me audio, a recording from a device he'd planted in Marcus's living room. I didn't listen to it. Couldn't. Not yet. By mid-October, I knew enough. Elise was living a double life, splitting her time between our home and Marcus's bed. She'd lied about late nights, parent conferences, art shows. She'd worn that emerald scarf for him, not me. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was the intimacy of it, the way she'd carved out a piece of her life and given it to someone else. I'd built my world around her, and she'd let it crack. I didn't sleep much those days. I'd lie awake, Juniper purring at my feet, and think about what to do. Confronting her felt pointless. She'd deny it, cry, make promises. Leaving her felt like admitting defeat. I wanted her to hurt, to feel the weight of what she'd done. I wanted Marcus to pay, too, for taking what wasn't his. The anger grew cold and precise like a blueprint taking shape. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to build something new, a plan, a reckoning. They'd both feel it, and it would be cruel, calculated, and mine. The days after I received the private investigators folder were like walking on a tightrope. Every moment with Elise was a performance, a balancing act between pretending everything was normal and swallowing the rage that simmered in my chest. I'd wake up to her humming in the kitchen, pouring coffee into one of my white mugs, and I'd force a smile, kiss her cheek, and say, "Morning, love." She'd smile back, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted something more than a shouting match or tearful apologies. I wanted a reckoning that would sear itself into her soul, and Marcus's too. I'm an engineer. I build things to last. This revenge would be no different. The first step was understanding them, their patterns, their weaknesses. I already had the photos and the audio from Greg, the private investigator, but I needed more. I needed to know who Marcus Reed really was, what made him tick, what he valued. I started with his public life. Marcus was a history teacher at Elisa's school, well-liked, the kind of guy who probably told witty anecdotes about the Roman Empire to make his students laugh. I remembered him from that Christmas party 2 years ago. Tall, with a disarming grin and eyes that lingered too long on Elise. I thought nothing of it then. Now it was a memory I couldn't unsee. I dug deeper, using skills I didn't know I had. I created a fake X profile, nothing flashy, just a generic name and a stock photo avatar. I followed Marcus's account, which was public and annoyingly active. He posted about history books, craft beer, and hiking trails in the Columbia River Gorge. There were photos of him at school events, always surrounded by students or colleagues, always smiling. One post, from a month ago, showed him and Elise at a staff outing, their shoulders touching, her head tilted toward him. The caption read, "Great day with great people." My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. I cross-referenced his posts with Elisa's schedule. Her late nights at school often aligned with Marcus's posts about being out late. Dinners at trendy Portland bistros, drinks at bars I'd never been to. I started mapping their movements, noting the places they frequented. A coffee shop called The Daily Grind, a wine bar called Vino Veritas, Marcus's house on 32nd Street. I drove by his place once late at night just to see it again. The lights were on, and I imagined them inside, laughing, touching, living a life that didn't include me. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The audio from Greg's recording sat on my laptop, unplayed. I couldn't bring myself to listen to it, not yet. The photos were bad enough. Marcus's hand on Elisa's waist, her lips on his in that parking lot. But hearing her voice, hearing them together, would make it too real. Instead, I focused on the plan. Revenge, I decided, wasn't about destruction. It was about exposure, about stripping away their illusions and leaving them raw. I wanted Elise to lose the life she'd built with me, and I wanted Marcus to lose the respect he'd earned. But it had to be precise, public, and permanent. I started with Marcus. He was the easier target, the one with more to lose professionally. Teachers, especially charismatic ones, rely on their reputation. A single scandal could unravel years of goodwill. I began collecting information, not just about his affair with Elise, but about his life. Greg, the PI, was worth every penny. He got me Marcus's financials, his divorce records, even his teaching evaluations. Marcus was in debt, credit cards, a car loan, a mortgage on that sleek house. His divorce from 5 years ago had been messy, with his ex-wife citing emotional neglect. There were no kids, but she'd taken half his savings. His teaching evaluations were glowing, though, full of praise from students and parents. He was the golden boy of Franklin High School, and that was his Achilles heel. I decided to start small, planting seeds of doubt. Using my fake X account, I posted in local Portland community groups, subtle comments about unprofessional behavior at Franklin High. I didn't name Marcus directly, just hinted at a male history teacher who crossed lines with colleagues. I knew how these things worked. Rumors spread like wildfire in tight-knit communities. I watched the threads grow, parents speculating, teachers defending. One commenter, a mother of a sophomore, wrote, "I've heard things about Mr. Reed. Always thought he was too charming." I didn't respond, but I saved the comment. It was working. At home, I kept up the facade with Elise. I cooked dinners, watched her favorite shows, even bought her a new sketchbook when she mentioned needing one. She seemed happy, maybe even relieved, like she thought she'd gotten away with it. But I noticed the cracks in her performance too. She'd check her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, her fingers tapping out quick replies. Once, I caught her smiling at a text, her eyes soft in a way they hadn't been for me in months. I asked, casually, "Who's that?" She flinched, just barely, and said, "Just Sarah." About the art show. Sarah was her best friend, but I knew it wasn't her. I nodded, sipped my coffee, and filed it away. The next phase was riskier. I needed to catch them in the act, not just for my own certainty but for leverage. I bought a small GPS tracker, the kind you slip into a car's wheel well. It was easy to attach to Elisa's Subaru one night while she slept. The app on my phone showed me her movements in real time. Most days she went to school, the grocery store, home. But twice a week, she drove to Marcus's house, staying for 2 or 3 hours before coming back. The pattern was consistent, Wednesdays and Thursdays, 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. I felt like a scientist charting data, building a case. I also installed a hidden camera in our living room, disguised as a smoke detector. It was overkill, maybe, but I wanted to know if Marcus ever came to our house. The thought of him in my space, sitting on my couch, made my skin crawl. The camera caught nothing for weeks. Just Elise reading, Juniper napping, the occasional delivery guy at the door. But it gave me peace of mind, a sense of control. By early November, the rumors about Marcus were gaining traction. A local education blog picked up the story, publishing an anonymous tip about inappropriate relationships at Franklin High. I hadn't sent the tip, but I'd fueled the fire. Parents were emailing the principal, demanding transparency. Marcus posted less on X, his usual stream of witty history facts drying up. I imagined him sweating, wondering who was talking, what they knew. Good. Elise, meanwhile, was starting to unravel. She was jumpy, snapping at me over small things, like when I left dishes in the sink or forgot to take out the trash. One night, she came home late, her scarf askew, and dropped her keys on the floor. "Rough day?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She nodded, avoiding my eyes, and said, "Parent conferences ran long." I knew she'd been at Marcus's. The GPS tracker had pinged his address. I poured her a glass of wine, handed it to her, and watched her drink it too fast. I wasn't ready to strike yet. The plan was coming together, but it needed one final piece. Undeniable proof, something public and humiliating. I decided to set a trap. Elise had mentioned a staff holiday party at Vino Veritas, the wine bar they liked. It was scheduled for December 10th, a Friday. I knew Marcus would be there, and I knew Elise would go. I also knew they wouldn't be able to resist sneaking off together, not with the rumors swirling and their time together limited by scrutiny. I called Greg again. "I need you at the wine bar," I said. "Get me video, clear video of them together. Not just photos. I want faces, voices, everything." He didn't ask why, just named his price. I paid it. I also reached out to a contact at the school board, an old college friend named Rachel who owed me a favor. I didn't tell her everything, just enough, that there was concern about a teacher's conduct, that evidence might surface soon. She promised to keep an eye out, no questions asked. The night of the party, I told Elise I had a late meeting with a client. She kissed me goodbye, her lips lingering a little too long, like she was trying to convince herself of something. I watched her drive away, the GPS tracker confirming she was headed to Vino Veritas. I sat in my truck, parked a block from the bar, and waited for Greg's call. At 10:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Got it," he said. Sending now. The video was grainy but clear enough. Elise and Marcus in a corner booth, their hands intertwined under the table. He leaned in, whispered something, and she laughed, her head tilting the way it used to for me. Then they kissed. Not a quick peck but a slow, hungry one, oblivious to the crowd. Greg had zoomed in, catching every detail. The way her fingers curled around his neck, the way his hand rested on her thigh. I watched it 3 times, my heart pounding, not with pain anymore but with purpose. The plan was ready. I had the video, the photos, the rumors. I had Marcus's reputation teetering and Elise's lies exposed. The final step was the execution, and it would be brutal, not with fists or shouting, but with precision. I'd make them face each other, their colleagues, their community. I'd build a stage for their shame and let it collapse under them. The night after receiving Greg's video, I sat in my home office, the glow of my laptop screen casting shadows on the walls. The folder with the photos, the audio I still hadn't listened to, and now the video from Vino Veritas sat on my desk, a dossier of betrayal. My hands were steady, but my mind was a furnace, forging the final pieces of my plan. I wasn't just going to expose Elise and Marcus. I was going to dismantle their worlds with the same precision I used to design bridges. Every beam, every bolt had to be perfect. This wasn't about rage anymore. It was about justice, cold and calculated. I spent the next week preparing, moving like a ghost through my own life. Elise didn't notice. She was distracted, her phone buzzing more than usual, her smile strained. I caught her checking X obsessively, probably reading the growing rumors about Marcus. The school's parent-teacher association had started a private group chat, and though I wasn't in it, Greg had a contact who was. Whispers about Mr. Reed's inappropriate behavior were spreading, and the principal had called a meeting to address staff conduct concerns. Marcus was on edge, and Elise was starting to crack under the pressure. Perfect. My plan hinged on timing. The school's winter assembly was scheduled for December 17th, a week after the holiday party. It was a big event. Students, parents, teachers, and the school board all packed into the auditorium for awards, performances, and speeches. Elise was set to present the art department's showcase, and Marcus would be there, handing out history awards. It was a stage, public and inescapable, and I was going to use it. I started with the video. I didn't want to just leak it. That was too crude, too easy to dismiss as a prank. Instead, I edited it not to alter the truth but to sharpen it. I used software I'd learned for work presentations, cutting the footage to a tight 30 seconds. Elise and Marcus in the booth, their hands tangled, the kiss, her laugh, his hand on her thigh. I added subtitles, not their words, they weren't clear enough, but context. Married art teacher and colleague at Vino Veritas, December 10th. I kept it clinical, factual. The video ended with a still from one of Greg's photos. Their faces clear, Elise's emerald scarf unmistakable. Next, I compiled the photos into a slideshow, each image timestamped and geotagged. The cafe, Marcus's house, the parking lot. I didn't include the audio. It felt too personal, a line I wasn't ready to cross. But the visuals were enough. I burned everything onto a USB drive and made a second copy, just in case. I also drafted an email to Rachel, my school board contact, attaching the video and a brief note. This concerns 2 teachers at Franklin High. I trust you'll handle it discreetly. I didn't send it yet. That would come later. The trickier part was the delivery. I needed the assembly to see this, not just the school board. I called in another favor, this time from a former colleague, Tim, who now worked in IT for the school district. I told him I had a surprise tribute for the art department, a video I wanted played during Elise's presentation. Tim was skeptical but owed me for helping him with a project years ago. Just make sure it's appropriate, he said. I assured him it was. He gave me access to the auditorium's AV system, a login for the projector software. I tested it late one night, sneaking into the school after hours with a key I'd borrowed from Tim. The video played perfectly, the images sharp on the massive screen. At home, I kept up the act. Elise was unraveling faster now, her lies sloppier. She'd come home late, claiming grading or meetings. But the GPS tracker told a different story. More visits to Marcus's house, though shorter, as if they were panicking. One night, she left her phone on the counter, and I saw a text from M. "We need to talk. This is getting out of hand." Her reply, "Tomorrow after. System, after school. I can't." I didn't respond, just put the phone down, my heart racing. Tomorrow was the assembly. Tomorrow they'd both learn what betrayal costs. The morning of December 17th, I woke up early, my stomach a knot of anticipation. Elise was already up, getting ready for the assembly. She wore a red dress, one I'd always liked, and the emerald scarf. "Big day," I said, pouring coffee into my white mug. "Yeah," she said, distracted, checking her phone. "The kids worked hard on their projects." I nodded, my face a mask. "You'll do great." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks, Dan." I drove to the school separately, arriving early to meet Tim in the AV room. He was fiddling with cables, grumbling about the projector. "You got the file?" he asked. I handed him the USB drive, my hand steady. "What's this tribute about, anyway?" "Just a highlight reel of the art department's work," I lied. "Elise will love it." He shrugged and loaded the file. I watched him test it, the video flickering on his laptop screen. "Looks good," he said. "It'll play right after her speech." I thanked him and left, my pulse hammering. The auditorium was filling up. Parents in coats, students chattering, teachers milling about. I saw Marcus near the stage, laughing with a group of students. He looked tired, his charm dimmed. Elise was backstage, adjusting a display of student paintings. I took a seat near the back, my eyes fixed on the stage. The assembly began with the principal's speech, followed by student performances. A choir, a skit, a band. Then Elise stepped up, her voice clear and warm as she talked about the art program. The crowd applauded, and she beamed, her passion genuine. For a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen for her, and it hurt like a fresh wound. Then the lights dimmed, and the projector screen lit up. The video started. Gasps rippled through the auditorium as Elise and Marcus appeared, their faces unmistakable. The kiss played, slow and deliberate, the subtitles cutting through the silence. "Married art teacher and colleague at Vino Veritas, December 10th. Whispers turned to murmurs, then shouts. A parent stood, yelling, "What is this?" Students stared, wide-eyed. Elise froze on stage, her face pale. Marcus bolted from his seat, heading for the exit, but two security guards stopped him. The video looped to the slideshow, photos of them at the cafe, his house, the parking lot. The crowd was in chaos now, parents demanding answers, teachers whispering. The principal rushed to the stage, signaling Tim to cut the feed. The screen went dark, but the damage was done. Elise ran backstage, her scarf falling to the floor. Marcus was escorted out, his face ashen. I slipped out quietly, my heart pounding but calm. The email to Rachel went out as I reached my truck, the video and photos attached. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing with texts from colleagues and friends. "Did you see what happened at the assembly? Is Elise okay?" I didn't reply. Elise came home an hour later, her eyes red, her voice shaking. "Dan, we need to talk." I looked at her, my face blank. "I know everything, Elise. Marcus, the scarf, the lies." She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. "I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. I didn't mean." "Stop," I said, my voice ice. "I trusted you for 12 years. You threw it away." She begged, promised to change, but I was done. I handed her the divorce papers I'd prepared that morning. "You can stay tonight. Tomorrow you're gone." She cried harder, but I walked away, Juniper trailing me. The next day, I heard Marcus had been suspended, pending an investigation. The school board was in an uproar, parents calling for his job. Elise moved out, her things packed in a hurry. I didn't see her again. The house felt empty without her, but I felt free. The plan had worked, every calculation, every move. Their reputations were shattered, their lives exposed. I'd built a bridge to their downfall, and it held strong. Revenge wasn't sweet. It was heavy, Final. Like the last piece of a structure clicking into place.